This is the Post Shift Podcast, a raw look at the hospitality industry. Hey there, Post Shifters, it's Shawn, and thank you for listening to another episode. This is my seminar from San Antonio Cocktail Conference a couple of weeks ago. It's The Search for Perfection, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart. I've done it a couple of times now, and it means the world to me, and I really hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you for all your support. I have to admit I am completely blown away with the support and the plays and the reviews and everything. But thank you very much for everything. I'm completely and utterly internally grateful, and hope you enjoy this. As I was just saying, thank you very much for everybody coming. It is the first, is it the first round of seminars, or was there seminars earlier this morning? This is the first round of seminars. As I was saying, I always get booked first day, first round of seminars, or last day, first round of seminars, which is even worse. Today we're going to talk for the search for perfection. And we aren't doing cocktails today, which I hope that is a good thing and a bad thing for some people. Sometimes it's nice and refreshing not to do a seminar with booze, and sometimes everybody's like, I just want to get my drink on. I thought about it, and I know what it takes to prep, and the prep that I do for the cocktails we're doing, it would have just been it would have been too much for the tacos, so I wanted to give them a break for this one. I do owe them a couple of bowls of bubbles, because Smolinski, if anyone knows Jonathan Smolinski, he's one of the taco managers. He called me out on social media for not having cocktail prep for this seminar, and said that if you don't do cocktail prep, you have to put 2 bottles of bubbles for the tacos to drink. And I said, fine, I'll do it. And he's like, no, I was just joking. I was just joking. I was like, no, you fucking called me out on social media. You're going down. So I got to get a couple of bottles of bubbles. So who am I? I'm Victoria, BC based. I always get introduced like, this is Shawn from Victoria. I know my accent sounds like I'm from Victoria, Australia. I'm Victoria, BC. So everybody know where Victoria, BC is? Far west coast, Vancouver Island. I've been there for 13 years now. In the last 5 years, I've constructed, consulted, or owned 7 bars in 5 years. I've created and helped brand and manage 3 different craft spirits. I'm writing my 2nd book right now, and I went back to school last year because I had nothing else to do. I do a few other things. Donnie Ronan and I were chatting about it this morning about what we do, because if anybody knows Donnie, no one knows what Donnie does. Donnie just does Donnie. So I have a podcast and a whole bunch of other stuff. So Search for Perfection, what are we looking at doing today? Understanding the classic DNA of how to perfect classic cocktails. I think sometimes, especially in this social media data age, I'll upload these all onto SlideShare as well. So you can get these in PDFs, or you can email me at the end and I'll send you a full PDF deck. I'm very transparent with how much my education is. If you want to share it with your staff, you quite easy can do it. I think with social media, we're going to talk about social media and the internet and liquor.com and everything, the amount of information that we have jammed into our smartphones on a daily basis. Everybody has their own opinions about everything. So trying to find the happy medium for your venue. Dissecting each element of the cocktail and perfecting it. This one's a fun one. I really like this. Using modernist techniques. We'll talk about that a little bit. And making drinks the best you can. So the 2 guys that I look up to, everybody knows Dave Arnold, right? Booker and Dax, Liquid Intelligence. And this gentleman right here, Hester Blumenthal. Both these gentlemen are, in my opinion, the forefront of perfecting cocktails in general. Dissecting every individual element of a cocktail and breaking it down and then creating it to be perfect. Hester Blumenthal actually did a show, I think it's about 7 or 8 years ago now, called The Search for Perfection, which is what inspired me to do this seminar. And what he did is he took the humble French fry and figured out how to make the best French fry. Crispy and golden on the outside, super fluffy on the inside. And it was a long process. He did the perfect Peking duck, and he went through 24 duck carcasses trying to perfect the Peking duck. So these 2 gents have sort of definitely inspired a lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. And then this gentleman right here. Now, this gentleman right here, Ueno-san from High Five Bar in Tokyo, inadvertently has inspired me to do this seminar by the way he does his bamboo. So, does everybody know the bamboo cocktail? Dry sherry, dry vermouth, orange bitters, pretty simple. Ueno-san has a thing where bamboo obviously is a big cocktail in Japan. He changes the recipe during the night depending on the guest. So, depending on where you are in your evening for what you're eating, depending on where you are for the evening and the time of the evening, he will change the ingredients in the drink to perfect the bamboo for the guest. So early evening before dinner, aperitif style. Later on in the evening, it might get a little deeper, like if you in between appies and mains, it'll get a little deeper. And at the end of the evening, it might even be a little bit on the sweeter side. It'll still be a bamboo in DNA sense of sherry, vermouth, bitters, but he'll tweak it to match the palate and time and what you've eaten and that sort of thing. So he inadvertently perfects a classic cocktail. Instead of perfecting it the way we're going to talk about today, he perfects it per guest and per person, per time, per visit. And the bamboo cocktail is the perfect example of what we're sort of going with today. So we're going to get a little political today, not like American politics, like bar politics. This is something I live by. There's no right way to make classic, but there are plenty of wrong ways. I think, going back to the internet, there's tons of ways to make old fashions. There's tons of ways to make Manhattans. Are they all, is Gary Reagan's way right, or is Philip Duff's way right, or Angus Winchester's way right, or whoever's writing about it that month? Or is it just a different way that they do it? And so this is a big one for me because I don't like it when bartenders say that's the wrong way to make a cocktail, because different houses or different bars have the different specs. And it's an important thing to keep in mind. Now, and as it says, there's plenty of wrong ways. Like, there are plenty of wrong ways to make an old fashioned. If you're topping it with soda, I'm going to put it down that's probably a wrong way. I'm just saying. The 3Ds, democratic drink design. This is a big one for me, because in understanding the classic, you have to understand different markets, different people, different bartenders, different training styles. So I developed this sort of mentality when I opened up Little Jumbo in 2013. Because before that, it was just me and my head bartender at Clive's, and it was just me and him. So if we found a different way or saw a new article, we'd go, okay, well, let's try that one out compared to our house spec. Which one would we like more? Done, easy. That's our house spec now. Then went over to Little Jumbo. I had like I had 6 bartenders in total, some from the East Coast in Toronto, which Toronto has a whole different flavor profile. Like even Vancouver and Victoria have 2 different flavor profiles. I find Vancouver cocktails super sweet because that's what the market asks for. Victoria is brown and bitter. The more brown, the more bitter. Victoria is going to love it, and sour. Vancouver is definitely much more on the sweeter style. So even 2 cities that close, different flavor profiles based on the market. So the 3Ds, we sat down and I spent a fortune, because what we did is every bartender, if the recipe was different to the spec, would get up, make the classic, whether it be sidecar, Mai Tai. We went through like 40 classics, and we sat down as a group. We went, this is the one we really like. Tasted it, we all tasted it, looked at the presentation, tweaked a few things. This is the spec. And that became our house spec. Then you have a team of 6 bartenders who take ownership on each drink because you've given them the democracy. I've had bar managers say, well, no, this is the way we do it because this is the way I like to do it. I'm like, well, your bartenders can teach you as much as you can teach them. So why not include them? And so I have like a rule that if a bartender comes to me with a new spec for a cocktail, again, we'll sit down, taste them all, see which one works, and then agree on it. But then the good thing as a bar manager or as an operator owner, how many owners, operators are here? Yeah? As an owner operator, that spec is now in stone. So if you see the cocktail going out and so a bartender who may not have necessarily agreed with the house spec that you all decide as a team, then you've got a benchmark for accountability. So it's nice and fun to sit down and drink 6 different variations of a sidecar, but it also gives you a like in stone spec for your house, because I do believe, I'm not even sure if I got this on, that cocktail culture is built out of consistency, not creativity. Like, it has to be the same drink every time. I appreciate creative control and letting bartenders be creative, but do off the cuffs creatively, but your house spec is your house spec is your house spec. That's just my opinion. You may run your bar differently. I'm not, just because I'm standing up here doing a seminar at freaking San Antonio Cocktail Conference does not mean that I am the be in and end all oracle for this sort of information. And then the other one is drink evolution. We're going to be talking about drink evolution because if you read a lot of classic Jerry Thomas books and Harry Johnson, which is easily to get these days, martinis were vermouth heavy, Manhattans were vermouth heavy. If you made a vermouth heavy Manhattan these days, you're going to have people send it back. So you're going to find a happy medium. If you read Gary Reagan books 15 years ago when he first published it, the way he made a martini is like, we'd all be like, if you saw a bartender make it the way Gary Reagan wrote about it 15 years ago, now you'd be like, oh my God, just get out of the bar. But this is how society and social media and the internet has changed the way we drink for the good and the bad. And then finally, we're going to talk about make or break ingredients. This is a fun one because this one we're going to get to. So understanding the classics, the martini and the Manhattan. I use these 2 examples because it's a nice fun way. So as I was saying, vermouth heavy, then spirit heavy, and then we sort of found a happy medium today. Like I do a 2-to-1 Like some people might be a little bit different. I do like a 2-to-1 sort of mix, as you can see from this. Like I do a 1.5 ounce base spirit. You can tell I do stuff in Canada as well because I've got milliliters, the correct methodology and measures for stuff. So 1.5 ounce of base spirit, 3/4 of an ounce of vermouth, and dash of bitters. So that's sort of my martini Manhattan, like plug in all sort of mentality. So perfecting the classics. Something I did at Little Jumbo is we sat down with all the gins and all our dry vermouths, and we went through and made a gin martini with each gin, with each dry vermouth, to find the perfect vermouth, because one size does not fit all. Beefeater may go with Nully Pratt. Well, the real stuff, not the stuff we get in North America. Dolan, something a little bit crazy, like an Australian Medini dry vermouth. Has anyone tried the Australian vermouth? It's a lot of fun. So we look at that, and that's just 3 options for one gin. Now, if you've got a big gin collection, like 50 gins, then you've got 5 dry vermouths. Each dry vermouth would go with each gin. So we'd sit down and we'd figure out exactly, and so we have a list. So if someone ordered a Hendrix Martini, what vermouth goes well with that, and so on and so forth. And so we had this list, so we were perfecting just the simplest of drinks, but perfecting it to a T. Because and I'm sure everybody's got this sort of rule, like a martini's easy to make, but hard to perfect. Same with most of the classics, old fashions, Manhattans, all those things. It's easy to make. It's 2 freaking ingredients. How can you fuck that up? But to do it properly, how many people have had bad martinis? I've recently seen a lot of airport drink photos, and the martini's like an old V glass, which is fine, but then filled to like the wash line is 2 mils from the top. I'm like, that's 9 ounces of like martini. No one's drinking that. The Manhattan is a fun one. 3 pretty relatively easy to get ryes. We've got 4 relatively easy vermouths. So your Nolly Pratt Rouge, which I really love, Punta Mess, Dolan, and then Antica Formula. I like Antica Formula for certain things. I don't love Antica Formula as a one-size-fits-all because it's really expensive and hard to get and all that sort of stuff. And then, of course, you've got your selection of bitters. So we've got Abbott's, which is out of, I think we've got Bob's from the UK, and of course the all-classic Angostura. So what is your house rye? What is your house vermouth? So if someone just orders a Manhattan straight up, what is your house rye? What is your house vermouth? What is your house bitters? I use Abbott's, Old Overholt, and Nolly Pratt Rouge for my house at my bar right now, because I just love that combination. But depending on what you get, Sazerac in Canada is like $60 a bottle. So Rittenhouse rye in Canada is like $50 a bottle. So yeah. So it's really fun for American ryes in Canada because $50 a bottle is sort of like in my opinion, like a sipping whiskey. Like that's just sort of like baseline for like, that's what you start sipping. But no one's drinking Rittenhouse on the rocks. Like, it's not really a sipping whiskey. And the Knob Creek rye, I think, is only like $10 more than a Rittenhouse, which is just weird and crazy. So out of all these, there's 36 possibilities. So perfecting your martini Manhattan is as simple as just tasting each gin, each rye with each vermouth and finding that happy medium. Because I feel like my argument's always, do you want someone to come into your bar and have one drink and it be 80% out of 100 good? What do you want we all want someone to come into our bar and have a 100% great cocktail and then have a second 100% great cocktail. And then the great thing is if you start off with your house and then they go, well, then you do your upselling. You're like, well, if you want another Manhattan, how about we do a Knob Creek Manhattan, a Sazerac Manhattan? Then you know exactly what vermouth's going to go with that and exactly what bitters are going to go with that. A nice little spanner in the works. Wrench. Sorry, I call it a spanner. That's what we call them in Australia. You guys call these a wrench. Wrench? Is that right? Am I pronouncing that right? Okay, good. Is doing a house blend. One thing that I really enjoyed doing, like Rittenhouse is $50 a bottle. So when I opened up Little Jumbo, we did a 70%, 100% rye Canadian whiskey with 30% Booker's bourbon, and jacked up the alcohol content, jacked up the spice tones, and like the more sort of like when you think about mash bills and stuff like that they do rye whiskey with, it was sort of like sitting around the same mash bill as you would get, but it was I think $20 cheaper a bottle to blend that in house than to buy Rittenhouse. So this is when Booker's was way cheaper than it is now. Booker's has gone insane. But then you do a house rye, and then of course you find your vermouth and you find your bitters and so on and so forth. So it's about those little things that perfect the drink, and it's the simplest of drinks, but it works. So single element advancement. It sounds really geeky and like nerdy and awesome. This is where you pick out one ingredient from the drink and elevate it to a point where the drink may not be changed. And this is where this is a perfect example, is the margarita. So I opened up Cafe Mexico in 2016. I opened up Cafe Mexico, a 35-year-old Mexican restaurant that had burnt down, and we rebuilt it from scratch and reopened it. So, of course, we just did a classic Tommy's Margarita. Like, Tommy's Margarita is Tommy's Margarita. It's epic, and why would you bother changing that? But what we did is change the salt, because I think the salt can make or break a margarita. The drink itself, once you've perfected the drink itself, the salt is what can make and break it. So what we did is we did kosher salt. I found a company, I have a company, and I think I have it on the last slide, which is called Quali First out of Vancouver. They do ship to the US, I double checked that. And they got freeze-dried yuzu peel. And so we mortar and pestle up the freeze-dried yuzu peel, put it into the salt, add some citric acid, and you have a salt rim that's just a little bit different and gives it a nice kick. And I left there, a couple of my guys run it now, and they still do a lot of this sort of stuff. We're getting into acids now, talking about Dave Arnold in the very beginning. Acids play really big on in my part of sort of work, and I use acids a hell of a lot. So then, if anybody follows Bobby Ugle, he did a whole thing about finding the perfect sparkling water for Japanese whiskey when he opened up Tongue Cut Sparrow. And so we did very similar. At FTW, I opened up FTW in 2017. Unfortunately, the liquor inspectors at Dix in BC, so I got shut down in about 4 months. That's a whole different seminar. You have to come to BCB for that one. But what we did is we sat down with Suntory Toki. We were a 1950s inspired sort of LA joint. Like if I can, wish I should have shown you a picture. But the space screamed like 50s LA, and I had a couple of Esquire books at home, and my business partner's like, oh, we should do like 20s or 30s. I'm like, 20s, 30 New York. Everybody's done that. And I had a pile of vintage Esquire books at home. And I'm like, this is what we're doing. We're doing like 50s, 60s, sort of Sinatra, LA strip sort of place. And if anybody knows or has seen, it's been a pretty popular video, Sammy Davis Jr. scatting for a Suntory ad in the 70s. So look it up, YouTube, Sammy Davis Jr. Suntory. And the whole ad, I think he's probably drunk already. He's just sitting at like a high table with a cigarette burning, and he's just scatting. And he plays the Suntory bottle like a cello, and then he pours some in, and all he does is like, Suntory. And that's the end of the ad. That is the end of the ad of the endorsement. I'm like, I'm just curious at what director's sitting there waiting for him to do some like dialogue, and he's just like, boom, 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 and then he pours in something, he's just like, Suntory, and that's the end. So we wanted to do something called the Sammy Davis Jr., and all it was a whiskey highball. I love whiskey highballs, but I like whiskey highballs when the water has been thought about, because we tried it with a whole bunch of different bubbly water. I went to the local market, got one bottle of every bubbly water, and you'd be like, oh, well, and I went from like cheap to expensive, thinking like different mineral contents and how it's going to play. I tasted Topo Chico for the first time yesterday. I'm fucking in love. I wish I could get it in Canada. I went 36 hours yesterday without sleep. And so when I landed yesterday morning, I was like just dead. And everybody was sort of showing up yesterday afternoon. I couldn't check into my room, so I couldn't sleep. So I'm like, well, I can mull around in the lobby, or I can just get out. So I went down, did 2 cold brews, a Topo Chico, and an El Pastor. And I was like, I got out. I'm just like, yes, I'm good to go now. And I stayed up till 10 o'clock last night. But again, I sat down with my team at FTW, and we sat down with a whole bunch of Toki, poured different bubbles and tasted them. And it's just insane how whiskey and water, it just seems like simple, like whiskey, water. Everybody does whiskey and water. Just everything changes, and every taste was different. And someone was like, oh, I don't like that at all. That's nasty. Nasty. I sometimes forget where I live, and so my accent always plays into weirds. Like no in Australia has 4 syllables for some reason. It's just no, but it has 4 syllables. And we add letters and take away letters. But we found this weird little French sparkling, super small bubble, really light and refreshing that just went epically with the Toki. And so we had the Sammy Davis Jr. on the menu. On the flip side, we had the Old Blue Eyes, which is obviously Sinatra. And so we did the Jack Daniel's single barrel. And we found that Evian, I got Evian as like our baseline. I thought Evian was going to be like the baseline to sort of go up from there. And it ended up being the favorite with all the crew. It just worked really well. A little bit more research as we was opening, we found a rider from Sinatra, and Evian was his choice of water. So it was serendipitous that it just happened that Evian went with Jack Daniels. And that one sold really well too. Like $28 for a triple Jack Daniels, and it just off the shelf. So as you can see, it's just the water is the single element that we elevated. We didn't do anything with the whiskey. We didn't change the ice. We made sure the ice was good, but the water was the key. So when we did it Little Jumbo, is we had some issues. Now I'm not sure how many people have got these same issues. Maybe it's a little bit different now. We got in one of the first Hoshizaki machines in Canada at Little Jumbo, and I brought in an ice baller, which we'll talk about in a bit. But we had a hell of a time getting our dilution points for old fashions right on Hoshizaki. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like you have to fucking stir forever and ever and ever and ever and ever to get your dilution point right. So what we did, and then what happened is we put it onto more Hoshizaki to serve it, and it would go past the dilution point halfway through. So whenever we do stuff like this, we drink the drink over a space of 10-15 minutes. It's a big thing for cocktails, I think. When you start developing a cocktail, straw tasting, it's great, but sitting it, letting it warm up, because we might all drink a cocktail in like 7 minutes tops, but some guests may sit there and hang out on a cocktail for 15-20 minutes. What's the point? What are you achieving here? But that's the big thing, is that we put it down and let it warm up a little bit, see how it tasted, and go from there. So what we did is we started getting our glassware and just freezing 3/4 of an inch of water on the bottom. We were lucky we had a lot of freezer space in our bar, but 3/4 of an inch of water on the bottom looked really cool the way we tilted them, so we put them on an angle and we just pour our old fashioned in. Super simple, but it did fix our dilution issue, which was really simple. So next thing we're sort of talking about is high prep, quick service. This is something that I work on with Pagliacci. So I currently am the bar manager at Pagliacci's in Victoria. It's a 40-year-old family-run restaurant, sort of New York, Brooklyn Italian, owned by my best friend's family. He's the GM now, so my best friend is now my boss, which brings up a whole different set of problems. But we're 72 seats. We have 72 seats, and in the middle of summer, like peak tourist season, we from 11:30 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, we'll do 650 covers. It is the most insane restaurant I ever seen. We don't take reservations. We only do lineups. It's like classic Jewish style deli, like down the block to the corner. And earlier last year, we did a full gut and redo from Mesa de Bar back. So the front of house looks exactly like it did in 1979. We couldn't change that because people would like drag you down the main drag behind horses. But the bar's brand new. We have 19 taps. So we have 15 wines on tap, which is a big thing in BC. I'm not sure if it's really taken off in the US, but wine on tap is massive in BC. And a lot of really great wineries are kegging wine. 19-liter kegs, same attachments, no much change, same fobs, the whole bang. We have 15 wines on tap, 2 beers, and then 2 cocktails. So we have right now we have a Manhattan on tap, and that goes through a chocolate, cocoa husk and coffee Randall. So if anyone's a beer geek in the place, a Randall is what Dogfish Head uses for extra hops. I decided to put that on my cocktail tap because I could. So summertime we did a Negroni through a grapefruit, blood orange Randall. So really, it just adds a bit of flavor. And again, it's that quick service sort of thing. We have a bottled cocktail. We have a milk punch. I put sangria on tap, which you'll get the recipe from in a bit. But we do a lot of high prep items, but quick service.
Do you need barrel-aged cocktails?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a sucker for barrel-aged. Right now, we do a Solera style, which I really love Solera style. We can get it. I don't think I should talk about it. Well, let's get into barrel aging now. I like Solera style because I have 3 3-liter barrels with a local craft. I want to say Negroni, but it's not a Negroni because it doesn't taste like it. It's a
new barrels?
New. I have used. I've done a Toronto in a rum barrel. I've done a Sazerac. Sazerac was a big one. That one was 75 liters in an old Napa Zinfandel cask. So you can imagine batching 75 liters. with just massive bottles of Peychaud's that you're just dumping into your batch and then dropping into a barrel. Once I pulled that, I actually gave that keg to a brewery and they put a saison in it. So it was a red wine Sazerac saison, which was pretty gangster. I like barrel aging for the oxidization factor, but I believe in the flavoring that the barrel brings to it should be incorporated. So the Solera I have right now, got brand new barrels, filled one with red wine, filled one with Madeira, and then I go find the hottest, steamiest, grossest place in the restaurant, sit it up there for like 4 to 6 weeks just to cook the shit out of it, and really let that soak into the wood. Then drain it off, give it to the kitchen to use in cooking and whatnot, and then I put my cocktail in. So I've got local gin from Odd Society. They do a vermouth as well as an Amaro. So I did basically a Negroni-esque cocktail. But then what I do is once a week or once every 2 weeks, I pull 750 mils. So 250 mils from each barrel, bottle it, and then on top I put another 250 mils of each brand new. And so the reason why I love Solera is it keeps getting complex and you taste it every week and you think it's going to peak and it just doesn't. You think it's going to be if you've ever done barrel-aged cocktails, you taste it after 6 weeks, you're like, that's it, perfect. Imagine doing that for 3 months, 4 months, and you've got 1% is brand new, 1% is 4 months old. It just keeps getting more complex. And every time I pull it, I'm just last week I thought was the best batch, this week's the best batch. And it just keeps getting better and better. I like Solera because you run out to a degree, but only for a week or 3 days or something like that. If you're in a super busy place that was selling lots of barrel-aged cocktails, Solera saves your ass menu-wise a lot of the time. The worst thing is you pull a whole batch of barrel-aged cocktail, it sells out in 2 weeks, and you've still got 3 weeks before the next batch is ready, or 4 weeks until the next batch is ready. So doing Solera allows you to continually get better, but also make sure that your 86 list isn't freaking huge after 2 weeks of barrel-aged cocktails. Well, that's completely off topic, but it was a good question. But this mainly because we were busy, I wanted to simplify things, but in simplifying some things, I've been able to complicate a few other things, like having a milk punch on the menu and a bottled cocktail and a barrel-aged cocktail and so on and so forth. I can also do forced carbonated cocktails with Pellinis, and I love Pellinis. Everybody should have Pellinis in their bar. Forced carbonated and Tom Collins, and everything is carbonated. It's gangster. But ice. So ice is a 3-letter word for profit. I think ice is still an untapped moneymaker, revenue stream for most bars, mainly because it is a high prep item, like doing a clear ice block and hand carving, that sort of thing. It's a high prep item, usually a high labor item, but to be able to put flavored ice cubes into the drink, you can bump the drink price up. So I'm sure everybody knows Cold Draft. Hoshisaki's making a big push for their cubers into North America. I love Hoshizaki. They created the technology, then Cold Draft Americanized it, which is why Cold Draft breaks down all the time. Hoshizaki tends not to. Sorry, that was a low blow, but it was cold. They also do these epic. They also do a love heart one too. So they do an 1.5-inch ice ball maker. So I brought one of those into Little Jumbo in the very beginning. Super inefficient. Use tons of water. There's got to be a better way of doing it. But I turned it on once a week. Then I prep bag them and put it in my storage freezer and prep bag them and have ice balls at notice. I got mine about 3 months before Alex, when he was at the Artesian, got theirs. And they had the same problems I had. And literally, it's a little tiny arm up here that, unless it clicks right, it doesn't release the balls. So I was doing Hoshizaki in Netherlands, because that's where I ordered it from, and they sent me YouTube videos in Dutch on how to fix the problem. And obviously, they weren't even trying to speak English. It was all in Dutch. And they made them specifically for me to fix the machine. I'm like, dude, English. But the videos showed me exactly what it wanted to do. And it was a lot of fun. I'm a big proponent of Hoshizaki ice machines. But to have ice, you need to have freezers. And I think this is one thing that a lot of bars open without thinking about, or they go more traditional style like this. I think these are a big space suck. Because you can't put shelves in, you stack stuff. How many people have got these in their bar? Now, how many people have smashed a glass inside one of these on a Friday night? Like, how many people clean, like, as a bar manager, don't know about broken glass and clean it out once a month and go, fuck, there's a lot of broken glass in the bottom of this fucking freezer. These are the more traditional ones. You sort of, like, most people cobble together like a half shelf out of old shelves. Like, I've cut stuff down and zap strap stuff and slid it all in there to make it work. They're traditional. They're fine. The ones I really love from True Beverage, these. I got one of these for FTW, and I absolutely adored it. It's 2 drawers. It's supposed to be for the kitchen. You put glassware in the bottom, and then in the top, it fits inserts like a kitchen. So when we opened up FTW, I had 9 different styles of ice outside of regular inch-by-inch cubes. So we had inserts of ice throughout this, which is why we do FTW. So FTW, we had 9 different styles of ice, including 3 different styles of flavored crushed ice. So has anybody ever thought about freezing ice cubes? I just got like 20-cent ice cube trays from the dollar store, did flavored ice, and then what I would do is I'd crush it, portion bag it, flick it in, and then slide it into your inserts. And then when it came time for service, tap, 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 tap with a hammer, into the cocktail it goes. Now, I love the romance of a fucking massive mallet and a Lewis bag, and donk, donk, donk. I think it's great for videos and great for liquor.com photos and all that sort of stuff. But if I'm sitting at the end of your bar and all of a sudden my old fashioned starts beating like a freaking Jurassic Park and a Tyrannosaurus Rex is running up against me, probably not the best for hospitality. And I like efficiency. Like, I like being prepared for service. I don't like thinking, oh shit, Juleps are going to go on a run today. Fuck, now I'm going to be crushing ice to order for the next, like, because it's hot outside and it's the Kentucky Derby and someone put an article up on the local newscast that says Juleps are the shit. So even at PAGs, we don't have a lot of flavored ice, but I portion bag crush ice. I portion bag crush ice like they do in the kitchen. I tap it out for my Mai Tais, and it's just quick and efficient. So we did inch by inch. We did thin spears for our Pimm's cup. We did cucumber water spears. So I'd peel and blitz cucumber, strain it, add more water, then put into spears, and just put spears into the cocktail. We did crushed and bagged. And then when it comes to your flavored ice, who does flavored ice in their bar now? Yeah? When it comes to flavored ice, I usually add like a 10% sugar syrup to the mix because it drops your melting point. So you're going to be very careful. Like, obviously, you're going to have a little bit of sweetness add to the drink. So you're going to be careful of your balances, obviously. But the 10%, and who's gone to a bar and had flavored ice in their cocktail and the ice hasn't changed or like melted or anything between the time you get the drink and the time you finish it up? Because we all drink cocktails in like 5-7 minutes, as she said. Or 3. So you need to have that ice melt. We have pea flour chunks at PAGs right now. So my bartender created a cocktail called Northern Lights. And so we had a cocktail on the last menu with pea flour in it. And we had just shit tons of pea flour. So she started soaking water, freezing it. She just chips it up into chunks. And we just drop a chunk of pea flour ice cube in the middle. So as the drink gets darker and darker in color and changes from different hues and stuff. So that was a lot of fun. But the crushed and bagged one, like we had a tea one, we had a star anise and orange peel crushed ice for a Mai Tai variation. It just changes the way that you can like sort of play around with cocktails because flavored crushed ice is something that people are like, well, that's a 2-water sort of spec. Crush it, bag it, like, and I weigh and measure it. So like I do a scoop, weigh it, get it around about what we need for each cocktail. So you're not like putting a half-empty bag in, like it's literally a bag per cocktail. And prep is a big thing. I run most of my bars like very much like a kitchen. So prep lists and all that sort of stuff, and everything's in grams, which we'll get into why. So this is an example of, this is the star anise and orange flower water ice that I was talking about for my my Mai Tai variation. So it was an Appleton competition, and I called it the Doc Victor Brown, and I'll tell you why. So this was before FTW opened, and I was picking up shifts at a local bar. It was my business partner's other bar, and my whole thesis for the cocktail competition was that this was a Mai Tai from the future, because I was bartending, and this guy all of a sudden like shows up, crazy white hair, and he's talking about this cocktail that he had at my 10-year anniversary for the bar that we were just opening. And then on my menu was a napkin with the flux capacitor on one side and the recipe for this on the other. So it was a lot of fun. And so I won. And so we did this as a recipe. And so this is literally how you see these, except for I usually have the mils in there. This is how my recipes get written out on my spec sheets. So ice spec is one that I've started including because like how many times you read a recipe top to bottom and the bartender like throws it on well ice and then he's got to strain that off and put it on the 2-inch by 2-inch cube or so on and so forth. So ice spec is like my first, this is what ice you're going to be putting this drink on. So yeah, all we did was like boiled star anise and orange flower water together, strained it, froze it, crushed it. Done. Another one we did was the Harvest Tom Collins, which we did carrot juice and walnut bitters ice. So we use Fees. Now, I love Fees. It's got its place, but it really is just more of a tincture. If you want black walnut flavor, you get black walnut flavor. You want cranberry flavor, you get cranberry flavor. You're not getting a whole lot of bitterness in there. So it's a really good one, a fun one to play with. So yeah, we do carrot juice, water, and then these beautiful bright orange ice cubes in the drink. And then the drink was pretty light, so it really like stood out. And it was a really pretty cocktail, that one. And then finally we did the Is That You, Ricky? So this one was sort of a clarified sort of cocktail which used lime acid and then pineapple ice cubes. And that was a super simple one. But having that freezer capacity in your bar, the reason why I like this one is I've used this in 2 places now, is that this one doesn't give you a whole lot of space on the top. Like that real estate on the top is taken up, the real estate on the sides taken up. This, you've got, this is a big workspace on top that you can put glassware and that sort of thing. We use it for glassware. At FTW, we had this right in the middle, 2 wells like out there. And we ran 3 bartenders most nights because the bartenders were the servers as well. It was only about 38 seats. And it was like Expo, like how a head chef would call off Expo. We had a chit rack up here. So chits would come up, they'd go up on the rack, I'd call it away, and then drinks would come to me, I'd garnish them and put them up on dispense. And so we had a cutting board, all our syrups, all our bitters are all here. So I was whoever was the mid, and it would rotate during the night, someone would be on the wells and stuff, but it was the middle point where everything would get finished, crushed ice, glassware would come out, that sort of thing. So bartenders, that bar was my best bar design ever, which is another seminar, by the way. Not here, but the top space that you have available to you is just insane. We've got pretty much all our glassware for Pags on top of that, onto some Versa mats, and it's perfect. And then you've got all this space in here. Okay, so acids. Who knows Dave Arnold? Everybody's got liquid intelligence share. Everybody sort of has read through it and try to work out the alcohol content of X cocktail and Y cocktail and weights and measures and all that sort of stuff. As soon as I read this book, I was just like, this is going to change my game. And the reason why it does, these are the 4 acids that you need. Citric, malic, tartaric, lactic. Look up Quali first, or Farmet. That's the place where I get most of this stuff. The reason being is that everybody's like, why do you get this stuff? Well, I got a black market Czech Republic warehouse that I order from, and I got to go to the dark web to get it and order that in, and it comes in weird packages, and I've got to go to bus stations and get it out of lockers and stuff. This stuff is really easy to get. So these are the 4 acids we're going to talk about. Acids can be your best friends. Lime acid, champagne acid. These are the recipes. Now, the reason why acids are your best friend, from a consultant point of view, obviously, I consult on a lot of bars, and the best thing that I like about it all, 1, consistency, and 2, you can do some elevated cocktails that give a real wow factor in a venue that may not be chasing that sort of market, but they just want to have something a little bit better than the restaurant down the street. And so these acids I use in a lot of recipes, like a lot of recipes. Don't worry, I'll have the slides up, so if you missed it. These are my 2 sangrias, my summer sangria and my autumn sangria. So my summer sangria at Pagliacci's on tap. This is the recipe for it, and I use 1 liter of champagne acid in it. So Of course, when you keg cocktails, using juice and that sort of thing, you have to be very careful with shelf stability, stuff settling, that sort of stuff. I find that when you use more acids, you don't have that issue. It stabilizes everything really nicely. I always use tea. My best friend who runs Pagliacci's as the general manager, he is big on like really classic sangrias, and so like if we do a sangria, it's got to have spice to it. If we do a sangria, we probably should use tea in it, so on and so forth. And so that's summer sangria. I only do one sangria. I don't do the white and red thing. This is our summer, this is our winter, and just make it really awesome. So autumn sangria, we use the Kven XO. Kven is a Moldavian brandy. I thought Moldavia was a made-up country. I think that was from Red. When I watched the movie Red, it's a greeting from Moldavian because it was like a made-up movie. I always assumed the country was. And then I found this. It's an XO. I think it's $23 a bottle in BC, which is really cheap for BC. It's probably like $5 in Austin. But I blind tasted it against VSs and VSOPs from the usual houses, and it came out on top for a lot of blind tasting. So for the price point, it makes life really easy. It's good flavor profile. I use it in a lot of things when brandy is called for. Smith & Cross, some Jeffard, apricot, cranberry juice, Pag's tea. The Pag's tea is made by Silk Road as well. It's a house blend that we did that we use in everything. Woodruff syrup is from Jeffard. Woodruff syrup is, imagine Jägermeister without the alcohol. It's basically like alpine herbs and stuff, but I use that in it. I wanted to go for like a cold mulled wine sort of feel to it. And then lime acid. Lime acid just cleans it off really nicely, brings up the acidity, and that's how I use that one. I also have done the snackeries. I'm sure everybody goes to most bars, like snackeries is a big thing, like a little pint size, so we put it on tap. So we did lime acid, sugar, 7-year-old Blanco. Miss Better Bitters is a company out of Vancouver, so strawberry and lime leaf bitters. And then water. So it was to spec. So when you sat down at FTW, we'd say, would you like a round of snackeries? And literally we had vintage glassware, a 2-ounce pour for $4, and then they can look through the menu. So we had a lot of fun with that one. On the flip side, I infused my water with flowering currant, which is a Pacific Northwest flower, very passion fruity and floral. I infused the water with the flowering currant and then made the acid. So then sort of like taking the acid and do it, like I have a hell no H2O rule. So if someone brings me a syrup, like, did you use water in the syrup? Could you have used something else? Could you have used wine? Could you have used like something, juice, something? So that's what I played with there. That was sort of like a clarified, as you can see, it's probably much just a clarified margarita. And the real big thing with acids is it brings consistency to oranges and grapefruits. You know, oranges and grapefruits are probably the two worst for, like, sometimes oranges are good, sometimes oranges are shit. Brings a little bit of consistency to it. Same thing with grapefruits. Cheetah clarified cocktails. So like the Old Rose daiquiri, the clarified strawberry daiquiri on tap. It's not clarified like the milk punch or anything like that. It's just using acids to replace lime juice. I do a lot of faux lime where it's like lime leaf bitters and lime acid. I like lime acid over like just citric acid because citric acid is very one-dimensional. It's very plain. Whereas the malic, which is so citric acid is citrus, obviously. Malic is green apple. Tartaric is vinegars, sauerkrauts, that sort of flavor profile. And lactic is yogurts and milk fat. Are you getting my sheets ready to say? I got tons of time. I'm watching my time. Don't worry. I'm yet to go over time for seminars. I see everybody divvying up signs. Let me tell in 5 minutes. Let me tell in 5 minutes. So when you combine them, like the champagne acid is more of a wine acid, like the acid you would get out of Rieslings and so on and so forth. Your lime acid is more, I want to say citrus acid without mixing it up with citric. And so you're mixing those with like Fee's grapefruit bitters, and lime acid tastes like fake grapefruit. You want to do a Cheetah Hemingway daiquiri? There you go. So you can do the Cheetah clarified cocktails with the faux citrus. And then I've been playing around with it a lot with milk punches. So I've been playing around with milk punches in general. Who's done milk punch before? Yeah? Good success? Yeah? Everybody's, yeah, cool. So I've been playing around with what fats, like what creams to use and what acids to use. So start playing around with half and half and lemon, half and half and lime, half and half with grapefruit, half and half with lime acid, half and half with champagne acid, and seeing what the end result is.
What do you use to clarify?
In what way?
You clarify the whole cocktail together?
Yes.
What do you use?
Depends on the cocktail. I mean, that's what I was, like. I play around with what sort of fats I want to play with and what sort of acids, and see how the final thing is. So the milk punch that I have on at Pags right now, I do a half and half, like just out of the container, and champagne acid as the.
Played around with the centrifuge?
No, I'd like to. I know it gets everything a little bit clearer than everything else.
That's what we're using.
Yeah. Do you do the milk punch process beforehand?
Yep.
Yeah, and then you strain it,
Cocktail and then put it
and it cleans it up real good.
It's just a hint of like.
Yeah.
It's pretty clean.
Yeah, nice.
Actually,
Are you using Dave Arnold's centrifuge?
No, different one.
Yeah.
We'll actually have it at an event.
And are you going to have the centrifuge at the event?
No, we did it at. Let me clarify.
Centrifuging to order?
No, not such. Well, hopefully, actually, that's.
Well, because it cuts down time. Like when I do my milk punch, it takes like 2 days. Like you let it curdle, then you put it through like one filter, then you put it through coffee filters, then you.
3 weeks.
Yeah, it's just like Well, and the centrifuge is awesome for that sort of stuff. But yeah, like play around with different acids, like the lime and the champagne, with different fats, because I'd like to really spectrograph a milk punch after all this process, because everybody's like, well, the cream and everything like gets taken out and it's just a crucible, but you can't say that you don't get that creamy fattiness from a milk punch that you get from using the cream. So I'm curious at what fats come through, what acids stay, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I've been playing around a lot with like different acids with different fats to see how the end product changes. And foams. Who does foams? Yeah? Where do you work?
Treaty Oak,
Where's that?
Dripping Springs, about an hour and a half.
Okay, so you got all the toys.
We're pretty much free-range to do
Fuck.
anything. If you want to come explore, we actually have like a cocktail lab.
Oh, I always love that.
We got a bunch of cool ass stuff to play around with.
Nice. So I sort of prefaced all this. The reason why I wanted to come, I like doing the Search for Perfection. And I'm sure you've got the same sort of opinion. Like I hate the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain molecular mixology bullshit. Like none of the stuff is hard. Like it's just about practice, about like having your systems in place so it works every single time. There's a bar in Toronto that does the Wizard of Oz perfectly. Like, ooh, you can't do this because I'm better than you. Basically, is their whole mantra. And the problem with that is that molecular mixology, or I hate that word because it's not molecular at all, is super simple. I've done it in high volume bars. I've done it in like dive bars. It's a simple thing to do. It just takes practice. And usually it's that trial and error and a lot of time on your own time that doesn't work always out great. So foams, egg white based. Most people do the egg white, sugar syrup, charge it up, away you go. It's simple. But the cons are it has a low shelf life. Like you've got a week tops, and you're sort of at the end of that one. I haven't used an egg white based foam in a really long time because of that. I really love the cream based. Again, this is one we did. We called it. There was a after school treat, and so it was Averna, the chocolate marshmallow foam topped with root beer, and it was in a milk container. They got served in a vintage lunchbox with some Chips Ahoy cookies, and we got a comic made just for the bar, and so you got a comic to take home with you too, and so that's how it came down. So the marshmallow syrup, I love marshmallow, like real mallow root. We're very fortunate in Victoria that we have this really epic little herb store, and it's only probably the size of this wall, and it's just like these weird, crazy roots and herbs. You want to make bitters, like you literally go there and you get 10 grams of this and 10 grams of that. It costs cents in the dollar. Like I can make mallow root foam for like 15 cents. So I make a mallow root syrup, and then I add some whipping cream, some chocolate milk, and away you go. The chocolate milk and the whipping cream is a recipe from Tony C. from his bar in his book. So I added the marshmallow syrup to add that sort of texture. And again, the thing is that it's simple, but the shelf life is the issue. Shelf life, again, is cream. It's got a use by date, even if it's refrigerated. So there's the after school treat. And I really love that drink. That was just so much fun. Except we didn't serve food in our little bar because we didn't have a kitchen. So the Chips Ahoy cookies would get chewed through real quickly on a busy Friday night with the staff just mowing down on, like, shots of Fernet and freaking Chips Ahoy cookies are like the best pairing ever. And I feel like everybody's going back to their bar now. And that's the thing. It's like a side plate of Chips Ahoy cookies and a shot of Fernet is now the industry standard. And now foam science. This is the way I like to use foams. 70 mils of syrup, 10 grams of powdered egg. So it's just dehydrated egg white powder. And then xanthan gum is the binding agent. You blitz it, Vitamix it, and you put it into and you gas it. It's perfect every time. If you make it the exact same recipe every single time, it's perfect. You have to shear it for 30 seconds. So shear it in a Vitamix or like a stick mixer. So shearing like just gets the xanthan gum mixed really straight through. This is what I love. And this is what makes foams easy in high volume bars. It can be pre-batched. You do foams this way? Yeah. It can be pre-batched. So you shear it and everything. You put it in your container, you label it. When it comes time to, if you run out of foam mid-shift, you literally give that container a shake, you pour it in, you gas it, you're done. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes. It's quick, which you can't usually do for egg whites, like you still mixing stuff into a container. The cons, finicky recipe development. Like I've found like if you keep that sort of methodology, it's pretty much spot on every time. But if you start swaying and trying to change things up, and the problem most people don't want to do with foams, is you do your foam, you make it, you do all the hard work, you go and it goes or it comes out too thick or anything. You taste like this tastes like shit. I usually preface all my seminars if people are okay with swearing. So I apologize if you're not okay with swearing. It's my culture. It's just a thing. So then you do you're gonna blow it all out and start again, and you tweak. So you finicky recipe development. That's usually the way I sort of play with it because you're rehydrating your egg whites. The powdered egg whites don't they have a shelf life, but it's a really long shelf life. You add your syrup, you add your xanthan gum, and away you go. So again, I think I've got a link at the end of this seminar, which is coming close to finishing up. But I always put this up on Facebook and everything else. So I'm really open to Facebook likes. I friend everybody. If you've got a picture, I'll remember you. And I usually put it up on Facebook. And honestly, I don't care if you print it out and put it into your training packages for your staff. I have full transparency. I don't care about proprietary information. I give away all the information I can because I know that 1 or 2 out of 10 people are actually going to use it. So I do that a ton. So, I think we've covered pretty much all this. Any questions so far? Well, we're almost finished, so we'll get to questions in a second. So, I have 3 rules. Well, I have a lot of rules. I have a ton of rules. My staff love my rules and hate them at the same time. Hell no H2O. If you're going to make a syrup, if you're using water, can you use something else? Coconut water, literally anything but water. The way I think about that is that goes back to that high prep, quick service sort of thing. You're adding an extra dimension to a drink with literally the same amount of work as if you were just making a regular syrup, basically. Ticket chit times. I like to use these because it's a nice standard. By no means, this is like the happy medium, like good service. We're not talking about like a Friday thumping, like the theater's just got out and you've just gone from 2 people in the restaurant to 120. Like, obviously, you're in the sticks. But 3 to 5 minutes, you're making money, guests are happy. This sort of leads back to my triangle of happiness. My triangle of happiness is 3 different sides, all equal. One side is staff, one side is the owner, one side is guest. If all sides are equal, everybody's winning. If one side is unequal, someone's losing. Usually it's the owner. Like, staff are happy because they're giving away free drinks. Or guests are happy because they're giving away free drinks. Staff are happy because they're giving away free drinks. And the owner's not making money. So this is all in a perfect world. 5 to 7 minutes trading water, surviving. We're not winning, we're not losing. 5 to 7 minutes on a busy Friday night is sort of where I like to sit with my cocktails. And when it comes to that, when it comes to creating a new cocktail, if the process is too long, we'll time it. Like if it's Like, and if you do molecular sort of stuff like what we showed, like we'll make it and time it, and then we'll make it and time it and go from there, and then figure out how to make it quicker if it takes too long. Perfect situation, no one in the bar, just making the drink for the boss. If it takes 8 minutes, we need to fix something. And then 7 to 10 minutes is holy crap. Like 7 to 10 minutes, like I'm a manager, consultant, owner, that sort of thing. So for me, I look at how many drinks someone can have. Obviously, if she's in my bar, I want her getting a drink every 3 minutes. If normal people are in the bar, 7 to 10 minutes for a drink is not so bad. And then that's just my little motivational quote of the day. Wake up every morning trying to be better than the next day. And I've still got like 20 minutes, but I am done. So I want to thank everybody. They're my websites, my email address. Feel free to email me and follow my multiple things. BC Spirits is something I just launched. It's a hub for all the BC distilleries. We have 73 distilleries in BC now, which is kind of insane. So it's a hub if you want to get crazy about BC Spirits. It's a place to go. And then that's my consulting webpage. But anyone got any questions? Question time? Anything you completely didn't understand? Nothing? Really? I always go to seminars and everybody's got tons of questions for the people speaking. And then when I do my seminars, no one's got anything to say.
What was you said that you ran a couple of drinks. One was chocolate.
Yep.
What was that?
Oh. Let's just sit back here. There it is there. So we have a local root beer from a brewery down the road. They do a non-alcoholic root beer. So Averna, for me, I'd love to do that with Fernet. Like that's just a Fernet drink for me. But Averna's a little bit more popular, a little bit more approachable, I mean. So we do 2 ounces of Fernet in the milk jug, do the foam to a certain wash line, and then top it with the root beer. And the foam would just come out and like sit up high, and we'd put a striped straw in, and then it literally would sit in a vintage lunchbox, which was a lot of fun looking around. Like it was like vintage glassware, vintage. No, I need my vintage lunchboxes. So we had a stack of vintage lunchboxes, like Care Bear ones and stuff like that. So you could really fuck with people when it came to like which lunchbox they were going to get. Like you have a bro in the corner, he's getting a fucking Care Bear lunch. Like he, So that was just a fun cocktail, and it was super simple to make, super quick.
I was asking about it was a pre-batch.
Oh, the Randall. Okay, so basically it's a pool filter. I'm not going to complicate it for you. It's basically a pool filter. And so it's a tube inside a tube. So it's a reservoir, and the cocktail comes in on one side and goes down and then back up and out. And so the tube in the middle, you can usually if it's a pool filter, they'll have like a filter in there to filter your pool water and whatnot. But instead, we pull it all out and pack it full of cocoa husks, which is the husk that's around cocoa nibs. I mean, if you have a chocolate place in your town that makes chocolate from scratch, go ask them, because 9 times out of 10 they will recycle it, and like it's compost most of the time. And I discovered it at a local restaurant that I helped open a couple of years ago. They used to do cocoa husk roasted carrots, and it would just be Hessian bags of cocoa husks delivered for like $2 a bag, like because it's just a compostable thing. They take it off to the compost. But when you start infusing that into like liquor and making like creme de cacao and stuff, I like cocoa nibs, but I find cocoa nibs are just like bitter chocolate. That's the flavor you gain from it. Cocoa husks give you everything from bitter straight through to like sweet floral chocolate. And for how much they cost, I didn't really understand how much a 10-pound bag was going to be, which was $20. And it came and it filled into one of those big Costco wagon things. And I'm like, I literally use 15 grams for a batch of creme de cacao. This is going to take me a really long time to get through. So yeah, we pack it for cocoa husks and then coffee beans. When you're doing Randalls on lines and stuff, you've got to be really aware of over extraction. So you're going to find a spot where it comes happy, where it won't extract any further. So the ones before that, like it'll drink really good after like a liter's been pulled through, sort of thing. But it just opens up an element of the drink that you can just go further for. So I'm going to probably we're talking about maybe doing a nitro-infused dark and stormy for summer. So I'm doing a nitro-infused one for that, and having a nitro tap and everything, and putting a dark and stormy, house-made ginger beer, the whole shebang. Tap a nitro through it. But during summer, we did the blood orange Negroni. So just a classic Negroni recipe, pulled through cut blood oranges. And it's nothing fancy. Just cut the blood oranges up, shove it in the filter, and away you go. And so it's a simple addition to a drink that just is mind-blowing. Yeah. Anyone else? Depending on what it is, Negroni is pretty popular, so we were changing that every week. If it sits for a bit, it's not a bad thing. It does, because it's all alcohol. Like, you're not doing anything that's like, it's basically being kept. And the blood oranges, after you pull it, are delightful to eat. So while you come up and pack in the new ones, you're just like mowing down on freaking Negroni infused and like forced Negroni infused blood oranges, which are delightful. Yeah, like every week, but then because it's an oily and biodegradable sort of thing, with the cocoa husk and coffee, I'm doing it every 2 to 3 weeks, depending on, like, I pull it off tap, taste it. If it's still tasting good, let it go for a bit longer and sort of play. It's sort of playing it by ear, like barrel aged cocktails. You know, I remember when everybody started barrel aging cocktails a long time ago now, but I remember reading a few articles where it was like, oh, I put it in a barrel for 3 months, and when I pulled it, it was horrible. I'm like, did you taste it in that 3 months? No? Well, then you're a freaking moron. Like, you taste every week, because there's going to be a point where you're like, this is perfect. I'm ready to serve this. Don't leave it for 3 months, then think you're going to come back to a freaking half-decent cocktail, you idiot. No, it took me forever to get rid of it. Well, don't be a stupid idiot. Yeah, so it's just that taste sort of thing, and then sort of go from there. And it all depends on what you do as well. Like, it's like just basic infusion. Like, you're not going to leave strawberries and vodka for too long because they get gross. Chilies, on the other hand, you can pretty much let, because chilies hit a midpoint where chili's not giving you any more. The vodka's already hot and spicy enough. You can leave it in the bottle, and it's a nice little showstopper thingy. Anything else? Wow. Must be either really good at my job or really fucking boring.
The cocoa.
Creme de cacao. I love making creme de cacao with it, just because that flavor profile. And if you soak it, it's like 8 hours, and it just really infuses really well. You pull it, you sweeten it, you're done. Like, chuck a vanilla bean in there with it. It's really, really good. So yeah, I've used it for a few things. Mainly the creme de cacaos and making that sort of stuff. But if you email me, I've got all the recipes. I'm happy to like do screenshots of my recipe cards and sending stuff through. I got no issues with that. So yeah, but the creme de cacao is really, really nice. Like, really nice. Hey, it's vodka. Yeah, you're gonna sweeten it up anyway. So like, just use a 40% clean vodka, infuse, and away you go. So yeah. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I know we finished early, so you can go downstairs and have a drink.